Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
Rain hit the roof like it was mad at me. I was in my garage shop, Pacifica wind howling like it wanted to fight. That kind of night. You had to half yell to hear yourself. I was planing down a stubborn edge on a walnut table, earbuds in but no music playing. Just the rhythm of my own tools and the rain punching down like it meant something. Then came the knock. 2 quick, 1 long. Not hard, not weak, just urgent. I checked the clock. 10:11 p.m. No one knocks that late without bad news or worse timing. I wiped my hands on my jeans and stepped toward the front. Through the peephole, I saw her. Kid. Maybe 16. Soaked to the bones. Hair stuck to her face like stringy paintbrushes. She clutched a backpack like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I cracked the door, just a bit. "You lost?" Her voice shook when she spoke. "I'm Aubrey. I spun out by the bluff. The road near Granada. Phone's dead. Can't get signal. My sister's behind me but got rerouted. My dad's out of town. No one else answered." She stood there dripping into her sneakers, not pushing past, just holding that backpack like it had instructions on how to breathe. "Get in," I said. Quick note. Before we continue, share in the comments which city or country you're listening from. It helps us see where you're tuning in from and figure out the best time to post new stories. Thanks. Now let's get into it. I grabbed a towel from the laundry basket by the back door and tossed her my old Cal hoodie. She muttered a quiet thanks and stepped out of her boots, leaving a puddle where she stood. I set the boots by the heater, fired up the stovetop, and threw together some scrambled eggs and toast. Only had 1 slice of bread left, but it was better than nothing. She sat on the edge of the couch, like she didn't want to touch anything. Eyes scanning, cabinet frames in mid-build, the half-done walnut table, my kids' crayon drawings stuck to the fridge with alphabet magnets. "You in school?" I asked. She nodded, chewing. "10th grade, Sacramento." She blinked like she was surprised she said it out loud. "What's with the solo trip?" "My sister was supposed to be with me. She got off the highway too early. We were meeting halfway at a cousin's place. Figured I'd wait for her here tomorrow." I nodded. Didn't press. Some things explain themselves just fine by not making sense. She noticed the fridge drawings again. "Yours?" "Yeah, my daughter, Nora. She's 6. Loves drawing ships and star stuff. Any animal with a dumb face." That pulled the first real smile out of her. Small, but real. I pulled out the couch bed, tossed on a clean blanket. "You can crash here. Lock's thrown. Shop light stays on. Nobody's getting through that door without me hearing it." She didn't argue. Before I turned in, she asked, soft, like she was testing the words in her mouth, "You were the first yes tonight." I didn't ask how many no's she got. Didn't need to. I checked the porch one more time, just habit, then let the storm slam itself against the roof while I killed the lights. By morning, the storm had disappeared like it owed somebody money. Blue sky, everything slick and shining like it got rinsed clean on purpose. I made oatmeal, brown sugar on top, set out my last 2 oranges like it was a choice and not just what was left. Aubrey sat at the counter with the hoodie sleeves hanging past her hands, hair still damp but not dripping. She took a bite and said, "This is the best breakfast I've had in weeks." She didn't say it like a compliment, more like a fact she hadn't expected to say out loud. She kept glancing at a little silver watch on her wrist, tapped it twice like she didn't trust it. "Where's the best signal around here?" she asked. I pointed toward the corner by the back window. "Sometimes you get bars there, like shy cats. Show up when they feel like it." She didn't laugh, just grabbed her phone and leaned into the corner, stared at the screen until a bar or 2 flickered to life. Then she turned her back to me and spoke soft. "Pipes?" "Yeah, it's me. I'm fine. I'll text you the cross street." "No, don't yell," I said. "I'm okay. I'm dry." He's not a weirdo, just helpful. She kept her voice low, but I caught the name. Piper. Sounded older. A sister, maybe. Could have been her mom, but the tone didn't match. After she hung up, she pocketed the phone and looked at me. "Can you show me where I left the car?" I grabbed my jacket and we walked out. The air smelled like wet pavement and eucalyptus. Her little coupe was still there, half swallowed by ivy, nose down toward a storm drain with the front tire jammed in at a bad angle. It looked expensive and annoyed at the whole situation. I crouched down, took a look. Axle's mad. Tire's worse. "You're not driving this today." "I figured," she said. "My sister's coming up in a few hours. Can I call a tow?" I pulled out my phone and tapped the number I keep for roadside guys who don't screw you. "I'll handle it." We waited in silence for a minute. She stared down at her boots like they had something to say. When the tow truck pulled up, she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded bill. I shook my head. "Don't." "It's not much," she said, pushing it toward me. "Just for breakfast and letting me in." "I said don't," I repeated. "You're good." She hesitated, then slid a folded paper onto the workbench by the shop door. "Okay, well, this has my number, just in case. I'm Aubrey. I already said that, but yeah." After the truck pulled away with her car, I headed back inside, peeled the wet magnet off the fridge and slid the paper beneath it. A and 10 digits. Looked like something a teenager might write on a napkin in a diner. I didn't plan on calling it. The shop felt too quiet. I got back to the maple rail for the school stage. One side was still warped, didn't want to sit right, so I planed it down slow. Smooth curls of wood hitting the floor, the sound steady, calming. I called Velasquez, told him I could do the install Saturday if I worked late Friday. "Good," he said. "They're going to do a play about bees, third graders. They built the wings out of pipe cleaners." "Bees, huh?" I laughed. "Better get this thing solid so nobody falls through trying to fly." The minute I hung up, my phone buzzed again. Nora's mom. "Dinner's off Friday," her text said. "Nora's got a cough. Don't want her out." Underneath it, she sent a photo. Nora grinning at a playground slide, her arms raised like she'd just conquered Everest. No jacket, just a t-shirt and that wild smile. I stared at the photo longer than I meant to. She looked happy. Cough or no cough, she looked fine. I saved it anyway. You save what you can when your time's limited. That night, I sanded drawer faces for the same school job. The grit worked into my palms, and the noise kept my mind occupied, but I kept hearing Aubrey's voice from the night before. "You were the first yes tonight." I didn't know why that stuck with me. Maybe because I wasn't usually anybody's first anything. Not since the divorce. Not since everything got scheduled, monitored, agreed upon in writing. And this kid, who could have been anyone, from anywhere, somehow showed up at my door and saw something worth knocking for. I turned the sander off, dusted my hands, and stood there staring at the bench like it owed me an explanation. It didn't give one. The maple dust still clung to my sleeves when I heard the crunch of tires on wet gravel. I looked up from the workbench and saw a black SUV pulling up like it had a standing reservation at my curb. Tinted windows, spotless shine, city money dressed for the coast. The back door swung open before the engine cut. Aubrey jumped out wearing a yellow sweater like it had been waiting for spring to show up. Hair dry this time, smile wider than it had any right to be. She grinned and said, "Told you I wasn't a ghost." Behind her stepped a man in a gray suit that fit like it came with its own security badge. Expensive but subtle. The kind of suit you wear when you want people to notice but not talk about it. He came straight at me with a hand out. "Finn Brennan," he said. "Lawrence Carrington, Aubrey's father." That name carried weight. Carrington meant property lines, historic tax boards, and old money that knew where it slept. It also meant the kid I let in that night wasn't just any kid. I shook his hand. Firm grip, no rings. "Didn't expect a whole crew," I said. The passenger door shut behind the third one. A woman in a navy wool coat, hair tied back like she was always in between meetings. She moved with a kind of control that said she ran more than her own schedule. "Aubrey's sister," she said. "Piper." She didn't offer a handshake, just looked at me like she was reading tags in a store, making a decision. Her eyes landed on my belt sander, then the clamps, then me. They softened by about 5 degrees. Aubrey elbowed me. "Told you I wasn't crazy." "You just said your sister was coming," I said. "Didn't say she was bringing reinforcements." Lawrence got to the point fast. "She told us you opened your door when no one else did. I'd like to thank you properly." Before I could answer, Piper swiped open a tablet and turned the screen toward me. My porch camera feed was nothing compared to what I saw. Doorbell cam clips, 14 of them. Same night, same time window. All from houses on my street. People peeking out, pausing, shaking their heads. Chain locks staying on, doors staying shut. "You were the first yes," Aubrey said again, quieter this time. "I was right about you." I didn't know how to answer that. I looked away, hands in my pockets, but I felt the weight of it. Lawrence filled the space. "I run Carrington Urban Partners. We've been investing along the coastal corridor, revitalization, small business anchors, community hold, not just flipping storefronts." He glanced around my garage. "You do good work. Aubrey said that even before we saw the clips." Piper stepped in. "I handle the digital piece, Blockbloom. We're building smart tours, CRM tools for agents, checklists for rehab sites, data with actual groundwork behind it." Her eyes landed on me again. "We do background checks, neighborhood checks, pattern checks." I let that one hang. She was saying they knew what kind of guy I was before they stepped out of the SUV. Lawrence didn't wait. "We're offering a local project lead, flexible schedule, woodwork, site oversight, problem solving, pays well, keeps your hands moving. You've got a 6-year-old, Piper added. We build around lives, not just timelines." I leaned back against the bench, arms crossed. "Why me?" Piper didn't blink. "Because you act first and explain later. Because you made space for someone when no one else did. And because this—" She walked 2 steps toward the sidewalk and pointed at the handrail I'd replaced last fall for Mrs. Renshaw, my 80-something neighbor with a limp and a mean garden. "This is exactly the point. Quiet work that changes things." Aubrey smiled again, all warmth this time, no apology in it. "You didn't even ask for my last name," she said. That's how I knew. I thought about it for a second, then nodded. "What's the trial look like?" Lawrence relaxed his shoulders like he'd already expected the yes. "We start small. You'll have input. No corporate nonsense." "I'm not doing social media fluff," I said. "You're not a mascot," Piper said. "You're the benchmark." That part didn't make total sense to me, but it sounded like something a smart person said when they'd already mapped out 3 steps ahead. "I'm in," I said. I didn't ask how they knew about the handrails. I already knew. Someone always sees. Most just don't knock. First morning on site, and the wind in Daly City came at me sideways, cold, salty, full of opinions. The block was a row of old brick fronts and plywood boards, storefronts that hadn't seen foot traffic in years. Weeds grew out of gutters, the kind of street that had promise under the rot, if you were willing to fight for it. They gave me 3 facades and 2 entryways. Keep it historic, but make it hold, was all the direction I got. That part I understood. Piper met me out front, tablet in hand, black coffee in the other. "Here's the Blockbloom beta," she said. "QR-coded access, repair logs, inspection flags, sub-scheduling, hazard reports, and GPS-tagged material pulls." I raised an eyebrow. "And what happens if it slows me down?" She grinned. "Then we adjust. Tools don't work, we scrap them. Doesn't matter if they're made of steel or software." Fair enough. I liked that answer. Inside the site trailer, the foreman, Deacon, looked me up and down like I was a Craigslist order somebody forgot they made. Graying goatee, arms like fence posts, hands cracked from years of concrete work. "So you're the wood guy they found on next door," he said, not even trying to hide it. "I'm the guy replacing the crap you all walked past," I said back, setting my measuring tape down louder than I had to. He smirked. Didn't argue. First job was a warped transom window above a doorway that leaned like it was drunk. I didn't rush it. Heat, clamps, patience. Same approach I use with people. Took me 4 hours to get it back to level without snapping the frame. Deacon watched half the time from the scaffold, arms crossed, like he was waiting for me to mess it up. When the window finally slid shut like it remembered how, he grunted and walked off without a word. That Saturday, I was halfway through cleaning up a beadboard panel when a little voice piped up behind me. "Can wood float forever?" I turned. Milo stood there, 7 years old, arms full of Legos, serious as a librarian. He had Piper's sharp eyes, but softer around the edges. "It floats long enough," I told him, "if you seal it right and treat it like it matters." He nodded once, then held up a green Lego man like it needed to hear that too. Piper showed up behind him, holding a coffee and a stack of folded site reports. I told him not to wander, but the Legos had other plans. I shrugged. "He's good." He asked the right question. Aubrey rolled in around noon, still in a volunteer shift shirt from some animal shelter, hair pulled back in a quick ponytail. She leaned in like she was about to whisper a secret, then stage whispered to Piper, "He's got dad energy. You smell that? Like a real job and emotional responsibility." I kept my eyes on the bevel cut I was cleaning and didn't look up, because I didn't trust my face not to show the red creeping in. That week, I blocked my schedule to leave by 3:15 most days, so I could pick up Nora. Nobody blinked. Piper just updated the site calendar and moved meetings around it like it was already baked into the system. "Family first," she said. "That's not just branding, by the way." Friday morning, I hit the road at 7 sharp, coffee in one hand, tool chest locked in the back of my truck. Or at least, I thought it was locked. First bump on Highway 1, I heard a slam. Pulled over and found the tailgate hanging open and my chest halfway out. One corner scraped raw like it had tried to bail mid-ride. Someone had loosened the latch. It didn't open by accident. Took me the rest of the morning to reorganize everything. Lost a full day. Deacon walked by around noon, saw me restacking socket wrenches and said, "That wind plays dirty sometimes." I didn't say anything, just nodded and kept packing. By 3, Piper had pulled the security footage from the lot camera. No wind, no accident. Someone had lifted the latch by hand. She didn't make a scene. She forwarded the clip to legal, then sent me a copy with the subject line, "Just covering bases." By lunch, a memo went up across the site board. New lock procedures, daily checks. No names named, but the timing was obvious. Nobody spoke up. Nobody needed to. Later that night, I walked to my truck and found a note under the wiper. Plain white paper, typewritten, like something from an office printer. It said, "Welcome to the team, Brennan." Eyes open, no signature, no threat, just awareness. I folded it once, tucked it behind my visor, and drove home slow. I still had the windshield note folded behind my visor when Lawrence texted me. "Need a local voice at a donor dinner. Friday, Hillsboro, dress sharp." No explanation, no RSVP, just that. The kind of message that came from someone used to getting yes before the full ask landed. I didn't say yes right away. I checked the calendar to make sure I had Nora Saturday morning. I did. The driveway in Hillsboro was longer than my entire street and probably taxed like a golf course. I pulled up behind 3 Teslas and a vintage Mercedes that still had the plastic showroom wrap on the seats. The house looked like the kind of place where the windows cost more than my shop lease. The chandelier in the entry was taller than I was, crystals dangling like it had its own atmosphere. I wore my best jacket, dark navy, 2 buttons, pressed the day before, and clean boots I polished until they stopped looking like workwear. Still, I knew I stood out. Every guy in there had a jaw like a yacht salesman and a glass already in his hand. The women wore jewelry that didn't move when they did. Piper spotted me first. She walked over in a deep green dress, hair pinned back sharp, smile tight like she was bracing for impact. "You made it," she said. "Driveway alone costs more than my month's rent," I muttered. "You're not wrong," she said. "Lawrence wants you to speak at the table. Just a quick story. Keep it grounded." I nodded. "That I can do." Dinner was white linen and 5 forks I didn't need. I stuck to the one that matched the salad. Across from me sat a woman in a pearl sweater set and a tight bun that looked professionally sculpted. Her husband spoke in percentages and development forecasts. She gave me the once-over like she was trying to figure out where the dust on me came from. "So," she said, tilting her head, "have you ever considered a real profession? You know, less splinters, more spreadsheets?" She laughed at her own joke like she thought it had range. Piper's jaw went stiff enough to crack glass. I smiled once, slow, and set my wine glass down. "I rebuilt a school stage last fall," I said. Wood was cracked, framing rotted. No money in the budget, but I did it because the 3rd graders had a play about bees, and the whole thing would have collapsed under their wings. They wrote me thank you notes in marker. One kid drew a bee with my beard. That's what I do. Silence sat there for a beat too long. Then a man down the table, someone with an estate smile and a salmon-colored tie, chuckled and tapped his fork to his glass. "Now that," he said, "is a story. You got a card on you?" I passed him one. The woman avoided my eyes after that and buttered her roll like it had wronged her. Lawrence caught my eye across the table, lifted his glass just slightly. Not a toast, not for show. Just a nod that said, "Good swing." After dessert, something small and sculpted out of citrus and chocolate, Piper found me again and nudged me toward the terrace. "Come breathe," she said. Outside the night was cooler than it looked, and the air smelled like cut grass and rich soil. She leaned against the railing and pulled her coat tighter. For once, she didn't check her phone. "I used to be a different person," she said, watching the dark lawn. 20 years old, on the back of a bike, no helmet, no plan. I left Milo with my mom for weeks at a time. Figured the world owed me flexibility. What changed? He got sick. Something small, just a fever. But I wasn't there. I came home and he reached for someone else. That moment rewired everything. I let the silence hang, then said, "I've been working weekends for over a year to cover Nora's dentist bills. She chipped a tooth eating frozen waffles. I told her to slow down. She didn't listen." Piper laughed, soft but real. "Of course she didn't." "She's got a lease on a place that rattles in high wind," I said. "Kind of like her dad." We didn't flirt. Not exactly. We just didn't look away. On the way out, while I waited at the coat stand, a board member, older guy, polished loafers, voice full of bourbon, leaned toward Lawrence and muttered, "Shop boys at budget meetings now?" Piper heard it. She didn't flinch. She just pulled out her phone, tapped something into a note app, and slid it back into her clutch. No comment, no performance. Just marked. When I got home, I took off the jacket, put on an old tee, and headed to the garage. I pulled a slab of cherry from the side stack and started shaping it into a box for Nora. I didn't need a reason. Just needed the smell of the wood, the scrape of the chisel, the feeling that I still had control over something small and worth keeping. The cherry box still sat open on the bench when Piper knocked on the garage door with 2 coffees and a folder thick enough to hurt someone. "This is how we help," she said, setting the folder down on the workbench. No shortcuts, no dirty hands. Inside were forms, school records, pediatric notes, attendance slips, and a referral to a family attorney who doesn't perform, just delivers. Lawrence called it keeping the lanes clear, and I didn't argue. My custody mess wasn't going to clean itself, and I'd run out of rope doing it alone. The first step was the home evaluation. I cleaned like a Marine on inspection day, every surface scrubbed, Every screw tightened. I recocked the tub even though it didn't need it. I wrote out Nora's weekly plan on a poster board. School drop-off, aftercare, bedtime, play dates, the names and numbers of every friend's parent. No fluff, just structure. Piper looked over the list once, then handed me a pack of tabs and said, "Color code it. Makes them feel confident." She introduced me to the attorney, Margot Klein, a sharp woman in corduroy and sneakers who didn't waste a single word. "We're not attacking," she said. "We're documenting. There's a difference." We built a file so clean it squeaked. Missed pickups from my ex, days Nora came home without her meds, 2 days she went to kindergarten with no lunch. There were 2 social worker notes already in the system. Nothing dramatic, but enough to prove this wasn't a petty grab. I hated writing it all down. Every missed dinner, every voicemail that said, "Sorry, I forgot the time." I didn't want to make her look bad. I just wanted Nora to have a bed that stayed hers more than 3 nights a week. I logged every work hour, printed invoices, and attached my new schedule showing I could still take Nora on Wednesdays for pizza and stories on the couch. I even added proof of project flexibility from Blockbloom. Piper's system flagged my pickups as non-negotiable without needing to be told twice. One night, while I sketched out a toy boat for a break in the madness, Milo wandered into the garage. He sat cross-legged on the shop mat with a Lego man in one hand and peanut butter smeared on his shirt. "What's that?" he asked, pointing to my sketch. "Something that floats," I said. "Hopefully. Can we build it?" So we did. Found a rough plank of pine and cut it down, glued it together, sealed it with 2 coats of leftover varnish. When we tested it in the tub, the kid yelled like it just scored a touchdown. "It floats! I told you it would float!" Piper stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. She didn't stop him. She just nodded once and said, "Don't forget to label it. He thinks it's a battleship." Aubrey started showing up more after that, like she had built-in radar for heavy moods. She'd swing by the shop with takeout or homemade cookies that were 90% sugar and 10% sarcasm. "He's normal, Pipes," she'd say loud enough for Piper to hear. Like, alarmingly normal. I didn't even know that was an option. Then she'd wink at me like I was in on a joke that hadn't been written yet. One afternoon, while I was updating photo logs for a fire-damaged entryway, my phone buzzed with a message from my ex. "Enjoy buying a Judge with your rich friends. Must be nice to afford loyalty." I didn't respond. Just took a screenshot and forwarded it to Margot. No emotion, no reaction. Piper saw the look on my face and didn't ask, just handed me a pack of trail mix like she knew what kind of day it had turned into. Later that week, Piper sat down with Milo on the couch and laid it out in front of him like she was drawing boundary lines on a football field. "You can like Finn," she said. "He's good at floating boats. But we're not putting anything heavy on him, okay? No titles, no guessing games." Milo nodded and said, "What about just boat captain?" "That's acceptable," she said without blinking. That night, I lay in bed with my head full of court filings, field notes, and timelines. My brain wouldn't quiet down, but my hands felt steady. I kept seeing Nora's face in that playground photo, the one with no jacket and too much wind in her hair. The same one I still had saved twice, in 2 different folders. I also saw blue eyes watching me from across my garage, measuring me like a piece of lumber, checking for warps, soft spots, and clean cuts. I tried not to memorize them, but they showed up anyway. The smell of cedar and old grout was already in my clothes when the bike rolled up. Loud, coughing like it was missing half its parts but still trying to flex. The engine cut, and the man who got off didn't look at me once. He looked at Piper. She was near the old hardware entrance, clipboard under one arm, tablet in hand, sunglasses on. The wind tugged at her coat, but she didn't blink. I didn't need a name. I just knew. The posture said everything. The ex. His boots hit the gravel like he thought they'd earn him something. Hair longer, jaw clenched. That worn leather look that some men wear hoping it'll make up for every place they didn't show up to. "I want to talk about seeing my boy," he said. No intro, no apology, just that. My stomach dropped. Cold, and immediate. Milo was at school, thank God. Not that it would have changed how I stood, but it changed what I didn't say. Piper didn't flinch. She pulled a folded envelope from the side pocket of her coat and handed it over like it was an invoice. This is a formal response from council. If you want visitation, file for it the correct way. There's a proposed supervised plan inside. No contact until then. He glanced at the envelope like it was toxic. You serious? I'm not raising my voice on a construction site, she said. And I'm not standing here debating custody with someone who hasn't held a diaper bag in 7 years. He took a step closer, eyes sharp. You always had a way of freezing people out. Still good at that. She didn't respond, just held his stare. Then he said it, called her something low, the kind of name that men like him say when they realize they've already lost the conversation. Deacon shifted behind me, one full step forward, jaw locked. But then he spotted the 2 men across the street, plain jackets, radios, no badges showing. Carrington security, standing still like lampposts, but their eyes never left the scene. The biker didn't even bother with a parting shot, just crumpled the envelope in one hand, shoved it into his jacket, and walked back to the bike like the whole thing bored him. The engine stuttered, then roared, then faded down the block. Piper turned back to her notes like she'd just ordered lunch instead of handed someone a legal line in the sand. No speeches, no breakdowns, just done. By lunch, the adrenaline had settled into my bones, and I was halfway through reframing an interior wall when Deacon handed me a sandwich. He didn't say anything, just set it on the sawhorse and nodded once. A silent truce. Practical men apologize in food. Then my phone buzzed again. This time not a call or a personal message, just a shared link from Aubrey. Heads up, it said. Trash blog, ignore it, we won't. The post was short but smug. Local gossip site. Claimed I only landed the Carrington contract because I was chummy with the boss's daughters. That was the headline. The body had more, calling me a charity hire, suggesting Piper and I were playing house behind the scenes, saying I'd leveraged a storm night sob story for personal gain. I didn't answer. I didn't call anyone. I just went outside, stood in the alley between 2 stripped storefronts, and stared at the post on my screen until I couldn't see it anymore. Then Aubrey sent the second link. A new clip package, doorbell cam footage, all 14 rejections from that night, edited clean and time-stamped. Faces half-lit behind peepholes saying no, closing doors. Then my porch light, me opening the door. No voiceover, no dramatic music, just truth. An hour later, Piper posted a response on Blockbloom's site. No hashtags, no spicy comebacks, just a straightforward thread with receipts. My bid packets, my general contractor license, my hourly logs, and the exact calendar showing when I left early for Nora pickups. Due diligence is a full-time job, she wrote. That was it. The blog pulled the post the same day and replaced it with a weak correction. Based on newly surfaced information, the usual retreat. The next morning, Deacon brought me coffee. He didn't say it was about the blog. He didn't need to. He just handed me the cup and said, "Some of us know the difference between work and noise." That afternoon, Lawrence pulled up in a black sedan and stepped out like it was a casual check-in. But the way he held the folder said otherwise. He waited for me by the new oak threshold I'd been shaping all week. "Trial's over," he said. "You've cleared it." I nodded once. "Appreciate that. Got something for you?" he added, handing over the folder. Inside, full contract terms, a new title, and an offer for a loft space above the Bayshore site. Big windows, 2 blocks from Nora's school. "You earned it," he said. Not because of anyone's name, because the work spoke louder. Later that evening, I stepped into the empty loft for the first time. It still smelled like drywall dust and hope. One side looked out over the tracks, the other over a crooked stretch of water where the tide didn't seem in a hurry to rise or fall. I could hear my daughter's laugh in the back of my mind, The way she cracks up when I read the pirate voice too loud or mess up a joke on purpose. The way she says, again, like it's her superpower. I stood there in the quiet and let that sound anchor me. The loft felt bigger than it was, mostly because it stayed quiet. No TV hum, no fighting neighbors, just early sun hitting the concrete and the sound of the coffee machine trying its best. We settled into a rhythm pretty quick. I'd drop Nora off at school, head to the shop, line out tasks for the subs, check site deliveries, knock out whatever detail work needed real hands. Twice a week I ducked out early for her reading time, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2:30, sat in the tiny chairs, turned pages about owls and oceans, watched her hold court with the other 6-year-olds like she'd been elected. Piper and I kept it measured. Coffee and paper cups on tailgates, some shared notes on project flow, a quick shoulder bump if Milo gave me a look like, "You again?" She didn't push, and I didn't drift. No guessing, no pressure. Nora asked one day, "Can Milo come to the tide pools with us?" So we went. The 4 of us. Spent a Saturday lifting seaweed and pretending it didn't smell like dead salad. Milo found a crab and named it Captain Bolt. Nora carried it around in a plastic cup until it nearly escaped, and she screamed so loud a jogger dropped her earbuds. Piper sat with me on a rock later, salt in her hair, watching the kids draw boats in the sand with sticks. "We're doing okay," she said. "Not bad for a couple people who weren't planning anything," I said. Back at Carrington HQ, I built a table for the common room. Took 3 days. Reclaimed redwood, heavy as stone, every knot sanded by hand. I didn't mark it with anything. Didn't need to. Anyone who ran their hand across it would feel the stories in the grain, even if they didn't know how to name them. Aubrey stopped by mid-build and leaned against a sawhorse like she owned it. "He's fine, Pipes. You know that, right? He's better than fine." Piper rolled her eyes. "You here to help or narrate?" "I'm here to make sure you don't get in your own way again," she shot back, then looked at me. "You good with your coffee black or like a grown-up?" "Depends on the day," I said. At the South Park site, a city inspector flagged a nasty beam splice. Looked like someone cut it drunk. He started writing up the citation, but I asked him to hold off. Said I'd recut the scarfs that afternoon and have it ready for a second look before close. He said, "If it holds, it passes." It passed. Then the other hit came. My ex filed for an emergency custody change. Said Nora, preferred her place now. Judge set a fast hearing, asked for school and medical records. No warning, just emotion and a clock ticking. I stayed calm, not cold, just measured. Pulled records, attendance, nurse logs. Nora's teacher wrote a note saying she'd started bringing her own lunch now and liked talking about our shop nights. I didn't tell Nora what was happening. I just stuck to the plan. School, homework, Wednesday pizza, bedtime stories. That night she fell asleep on my arm with the wooden boat balanced on her chest, like she was guarding it. I didn't move for 90 minutes. My arm went numb. Didn't care. The next morning, Milo left a sticky note on my toolbox. Big letters, red crayon, don't forget glue. Friday, a second one. Ship day? With a crooked smile drawn underneath. I kept them both, folded, in my wallet, like proof. Late one night, after site updates and budget notes, Piper texted me, "Thanks for not making this messy." I wrote back, "I don't like messes. I like things that last." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The family courtroom had gray carpet and worse lighting. One framed watercolor of a sailboat, tilted like even the art wanted out. It wasn't loud, but it felt like a stadium. Too many eyes, too many rows. Everything carried weight. My lawyer, Margot, didn't waste time. She laid it all out like she'd rehearsed it in her sleep. The independent home evaluation, statements from Nora's teacher about chronic tardies, 2 notes from the pediatrician, and both social worker alerts from earlier that year. She went over my work schedule, the updated loft address, the 2-block walk to school, and my projected income with the contract I'd just signed. She didn't embellish, just delivered facts, clean and calm. The judge listened like he was keeping score. My ex's lawyer tried to spin it. He has benefactors, corporate backing. It's a PR campaign for them, and he's the face. Margot didn't even twitch. She turned a page. The judge cut in. Ms. Talbot, was this the same child in the playground photo with no coat? There was a pause, long enough to feel the shift. Yes, her lawyer answered, but she wasn't sick. She had a cough, the judge said, and your client told the father to cancel visitation because of it. That changed the room. We wrapped under 2 hours. The judge read the order like it was already written in stone. Primary physical custody to me, set visitation for the mother, standard holiday rotation, mediation open for future adjustments. No drama, no applause, just the gavel and the echo. I walked out like I'd just stepped into a different year. Air tasted sharper. Sun hit different. Like I hadn't realized how much I'd been holding my breath until I finally let it out. Lawrence was waiting outside, holding 2 coffees. He handed me one and nodded like he knew what the answer had been before I said anything. "We've got something new for you," he said, walking with me toward the sidewalk. Craft and historic elements lead. Oversight across all corridor sites. Anything with wood, hand repair, or restoration design. You get a say in the look and feel. I exhaled. I don't do politics. You do outcomes, he said. That's what matters. Back at the loft, I unpacked 2 small beds. One was already Nora's, tucked in beside the shelf of dog-eared books and a chipped globe. The other went along the opposite wall, half for movie nights, half for the kid who sometimes showed up with Legos in his socks and questions about boats. I put clean sheets on both and stepped back to look at them. They didn't match, but they made sense. Piper showed up just after dark, carrying a bag of kitchen stuff, cutting board, spatula, 2 mugs, and a box of tea with half the top ripped open. I figured your drawer situation was probably tragic, she said. I set the bag on the counter. You figured right. She hovered, not in a bad way, just not sure if she was supposed to stay or go. Then she said, "We do this slow, right?" "No speech needed," I said. "Slow's good." She gave a short nod and stepped back, but I caught the way she looked at the second bed. No questions, just understanding. That night, after the lights were out and the city quieted, I sat at the desk and pulled out a piece of shop paper. Wrote 1 rule down in black marker and taped it to the inside of the cabinet door. Nobody gets to use me to score points. Nobody gets to pull my kid into a tug of war. Steady deck, no drama, just the work, just the weight that mattered. The loft smelled like garlic and sawdust that first Sunday night. Not fancy, not staged, just right. The windows were cracked to let the steam out, and the air coming in smelled like wet concrete and wood glue. Nora stood on tiptoe to set the table, concentrating like she was diffusing a bomb. Every napkin folded exactly the same, mismatched plates lined up by color. Milo dragged a chair across the floor and lined up 5 wooden boats by size. He told me it was a proper harbor, and that even tiny ships need somewhere to dock. Piper knocked, even though the door was wide open. That was her way, never assuming, never barging. She carried a tray of roasted carrots and something with herbs on it I couldn't name. Aubrey followed behind, juggling a grocery bag and her usual 20% chaos. She was already talking before she finished closing the door. "Okay, I brought dessert, but I also forgot forks, so unless anyone here eats brownies with a hammer..." "You'd be surprised," I said, taking the bag. Lawrence came last. His coat was folded over his arm, no assistant, no noise. Just a small wrapped book under one hand. He handed it to Nora, a field guide to trees of North America, and then shook my hand like we were teammates, not 2 names on a contract. We sat down at the redwood table I'd built with leftover slabs from the Valencia project. The legs were heavy, the top was scarred from clamps, and the chairs were old thrift pieces I'd refit with new joints. Nobody asked for matching. Nobody cared. We talked about the small stuff, school science projects, a cracked sidewalk out front, A new bakery downtown that overcharges for croissants, but everyone still goes. No one performed. No one tried to be the loudest voice at the table. It was just food, laughter, and breathing room. After dinner, Milo dragged the plastic tub onto the balcony, and we filled it halfway with water. He brought out the little pine boat we'd sealed together, plus the sinkers, 2 failed prototypes we kept just to prove what didn't work. He lined them up beside the tub, proud like he was showing off a collection. "You've got to know both sides of a thing," he said. "What floats and what doesn't." He placed the boat in and let it ride the ripples. I sat beside him on the concrete, letting my hands rest on my knees. Piper leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, watching. She didn't hover. She didn't direct. She let it be what it was, ours and hers, without needing to own it. Milo turned to me with water dripping down his chin. "Can I tell my class I got a dad fin now? One who makes ships out of wood?" I didn't blink. "Yeah, buddy. Tell them exactly that." Later, when the plates were washed and the kids were out cold on the beds inside, Piper stepped out onto the balcony beside me. No big moment, no wrap-up speech. "We do this slow," she said. "No speech needed," I said back. We stood at the rail, the city lit below us in pieces. She rested one hand near mine but didn't grab it. We didn't talk about forever. We didn't promise what nobody can control. We agreed on the small things. Show up. Fix what breaks. Make space for what needs room. Leave the door open when you can. If you're wondering about the neighbors from that storm night, some of them sent cookies after the doorbell video made the rounds. Some still avoid eye contact when they pass me on the street. A few asked if I'd take a look at their porch steps or loose rails. I helped when I could, not to prove anything, not to be thanked. Just because that's the kind of man I want my kids to see when they look at me. I was 33 when a soaked teenager knocked on my door and I said yes. I'm older now. Not wiser, maybe, but steadier. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't pick the weather. You steady the deck and keep your hands on the rail. What about you? Have you ever had to decide who you'd be when life hit hard? If this story spoke to you, drop a comment and tell us what you think, or just write "good story" to show support. And if you liked it, please hit like and subscribe. It means a lot to us and takes only one click.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.